Joining me now, as he does each and every week, is Sky News Australia's media watchdog columnist, Gerard Henderson. Gerard, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, we've got Mark Kenny. We've got two grabs from ABC insiders because he appears to very quickly have shifted his position. So let's listen to what he first said at the beginning of the show.
That is not anti-Semitic. It may be unworkable, but it's not anti-Semitic. It is, in fact, the reason it's opposed in Israel is because it would result in Jewish Israelis not being in the majority and therefore losing control of. Well,
it actually means getting rid of the state of Israel. I mean, I think that's a fairly clear point.
It is a debate.
Well, of course it's a debate, but I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't say that is anti-Semitic. I think it is.
Well, but people do contest that, Jennifer. This is
well, of course.
Well, if it's a democracy, why does this state have a leave pass to be based on religion? And yet claim itself to be a democracy. If you have an entire population with access to the vote and full citizenship rights and everything else within the borders of that country, then that is what we call a democracy in every other part of the world.
But by the end of the show, he was singing a different tune.
Yeah, look, just back to our conversation about Israel and one state versus two state and so forth. I mean, I'm firmly of the view that it ought to be a two-state solution. I wasn't advocating for a one state, so I just want to be clear about that.
What has happened here?
Well, the talking pictures segment came in between those two bits, and either someone spoke to him or he had a rethink. But what he was saying early on was you should have a one-state solution, which is all the current Israelis and all the Palestinians and the people in Gaza and on the West Bank all come into one state, which is the end of the Jewish state, which many people say is anti-Semitic because you're saying you've got to get rid of a Jewish state. But then within 10 minutes, he was all in favour of a two-state solution, which is Israel alongside a Palestinian state. So something happened, and he's not just a journo anymore, he's a professor at the Australian National University, so you would expect a bit more consistency.
Yeah, it shows that perhaps maybe a lack of understanding, and the framing that you've just you've mentioned now, it's such important framing because the whole, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free. The reason that's anti-Semitic is because it leaves no recourse for Jewish people to be able to exist. No, and it's quite clearly a problematic statement.
And the suggestion that Israel's not a democracy is just ludicrous because, I mean, there are many Jews in the government, but there are also Muslims in the parliament. They're Christians, they're Druze, they're others. I mean, this is a democracy and functions as a democracy with about 20% Muslim population. But I don't know about Mark Kenny, but I think it's very difficult for people, Australians, to understand the Middle East and understand Israel in particular if they haven't been there. I mean, it's a very small country. Everyone's on top of one another. Many Islamists want to murder Jews, as what happened on October the 7th. And so the Jewish people are in a very difficult situation. So they don't want to go into a one state because they wouldn't survive in a one state solution. So you have to have a two-state solution, which is very difficult to get. So Mark Kenny's gone from saying Israel's not a democracy and we need a one-state solution to saying Israel, we need a two-state solution implied because Israel is a democracy, which seems pretty confused to me, but then I'm just the
He did seem to have a bit of a light bulb moment. He goes, well, just on what we were talking about before.
Well, he might have got a message on his phone because there was a gap in between. They went to talking pictures, so there was a 4-minute gap in between. There was plenty of time for someone to get on the line and say,
good theory,
send a text and say, watch out. Did you really say that?
We'll let the viewers decide what they think happened in that time gap. But let's move on now to the ABC has put some anti-US rhetoric to air. Let's have a listen.
So you mentioned Iran, for example, at the beginning. That conflict involved the United States unilaterally bombing Iran with no legitimate basis in international law. So not only did the Trump administration further undermine the institutions and the principles of international law, it's also taken a policy position that you can effectively bomb your way to peace. US Secretary of State Henry Kissinger was awarded the Peace Prize in 1973 for his role in negotiating an end to the war in Vietnam, which of course was a war that the United States started.
A lot to unpack there. I've got a lot of thoughts about this one. Brilliant grab you've found. But he did bomb his way into peace. That has been a resounding, completely shattered their nuclear capabilities and then managed to do so without boots on the ground and the death of Americans.
Well, that's true. But
he's bombed his way to peace.
Also the Second World War. Bomber Command and the American bombers. I mean, whether you think it was right or wrong, had a big role in that, and as happened in Japan as well. I mean, you can bomb your way to peace. Trump doesn't want to do it if he can avoid it. I mean, it was a very limited bombing on Iran, but it was effective. But this notion that you can't bomb your way to peace is just a left-wing position. Now, the Australia Institute is invariably on the ABC. They're on all the time. The other think tanks, the right-of-centre think tanks are never on virtually. Australia Institute's on all the time. So what you had there is just a left-wing academic running a left-wing line. And then the second position is the idea that the United States invaded Vietnam is just ludicrous. I mean, what happened in Vietnam? You had a communist dictatorship in North Vietnam that wanted to take over the non-communist government in South Vietnam. And eventually the Americans and the Australians and others supported for a while militarily and later with aid, and then the Americans stopped their aid and the North conquered the South. But there was a war going on in Vietnam well before the United States got there. So someone who has a doctorate and who goes on as a sort of specialist on the ABC, a specialist historian, gets that completely wrong, totally wrong. But the other point is there's never a comeback. I mean, the presenter doesn't come back and say, well, do you really think the United States invaded Vietnam? Which is what you should get, but you didn't get it at all. It's like, and it just went on and on against...
Do you think it's a lack of a knowledge base, perhaps?
I think it is. I mean, I think there's a lot of ignorance around some academics these days. They have a certain view of stuff. You don't like the United States, therefore they bomb people, therefore they invade Vietnam. But you got to understand.
It's a very bad faith lens to look at that, and it doesn't understand, I guess, some of these more hostile countries, what is actually going on there. From my point of view, Gerard Henderson, thank you so much as always. Really appreciate your insights on this show.